Hey, Kevin here, top 100 financial advisor, two-time author, one-time bestseller, and we are here to talk about the stock market. Today, I want to answer one of your questions. This one was from YouTube. Yes, we do have YouTube. I say it because I think we have like less than 500 subscribers on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, and even if you're not, go and subscribe. But we know we have a much bigger following on Facebook, Instagram, email, and really on public. We have like 300,000 followers there. So we're all over the place, but I wanted to answer a few questions that you guys asked on YouTube. And this question was for an IRA. What are the top 3 index funds I would put inside my IRA? I'm actually going to give you 4 that I like, give you some things you need to know about those 4 and how you can kind of switch it up if you choose to switch it up, and we'll take it from there. But number 1, index funds are still important. It has been a crazy year thus far. We're only 5 months into it, and what we thought going into it isn't exactly what we expected, because a lot of us, whether it's Tesla or any of the other bigger tech names, again, I put an asterisk by Tesla being a tech company, but again, whatever, we can say it for another day. But Google did well. Told you guys about that. That's up more than 35%. Square is okay. PayPal's okay. They're surviving, right? But then you've got, Tesla, for example, is down close to 12%. You've got a lot of the other bigger tech names. Apple is down. Amazon is down for the entire year, which again is still relatively early. We're almost at the halfway point, but those are down. It's not something that most people would have expected going into it. So what do we need to do, and why are index funds important, and why did I decide to answer this question? Well, the S&P 500 is up 10% this year. That's more than Apple and Amazon and Tesla, which is not something that is normal, and is not something that definitely is not something that happened last year. Index funds are important because they own the entire stock market in most cases, and they keep you diversified, because it is difficult to beat the market, number 1, but also to try and guess and hope that you're going to be in the right sections of the stock market. In previous years, it was tech. It was super, super easy to do that. And it's also tech and not energy. Well, it's actually flipped this year, where a company like ExxonMobil is up more than like 40% year to date over the past 5 months. It's up, or since 2021, same thing, right? They're up more than 40%. And now you've got the gas shortage on the East Coast. I wonder how that's going to impact them. We'll see. And we may also do, and I think I wrote it down on my list, as well as some other things we want to cover. We want to start talking about energy, because it's been the hottest sector this year. So we got to rotate, right? We got to think, we got to reevaluate. And this is why I always emphasize at the half point of the year, at 6 months, I sit down and reevaluate my portfolio and say, look, I thought this going in. Now it's time for me to tweak just a thing here or there. I'm not someone that's going to sell Apple or Amazon. They're going to be here, right? But in my public portfolio, as you guys can all see, there may be some tweaks I might make. Maybe I'll switch out of T-Mobile for an Exxon or a better energy company, one that's a little more green friendly, right? But I'll be looking at those things. So energy is a place I want to look. We've talked about the banking sector. That's a place I want to look, and we'll have those discussions. We'll definitely talk about it in June. But right now we need to have those things on our list. I'm adding things to my list and thinking about those. However, if you invest primarily in index funds, you don't have to have those conversations. And that's why I'm so excited about it, because I do own index funds. The majority of my money is in index funds, which is why I talked about it on the Financial Diet and other podcasts. And even here, we don't talk about it as much, but y'all know the vast majority of my money is in index funds, and I invest in those individual stocks to get just a tiny bit more than what the S&P 500 can do, which is broadly what we call the market. So without further ado, let's go into the four index funds that I like, that I have in my portfolio, or the equivalent of, because as I've mentioned before, and maybe we'll pull up a slide, or not a slide, but a screen, where it shows you that there are a lot of versions of the exact same thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this up, and we'll use a whiteboard to mention the 4 that I like, that I would trust to put in my portfolio, my IRA, and really what I pretty much have in my 401k too. So let's go ahead and write that down. Hopefully this doesn't freeze. It froze on me last time and it looked weird. At least on my end it looked weird. I don't know if y'all saw it or not. All right, so let's go ahead and write it down. So there are 4. These are all Vanguard funds. Again, they don't have to be Vanguard. These are just the ones I've pretty much committed to memory at this point. All right, so we got VTI as the first one. This is their total US stock market fund. I don't think that's how you spell total. Total US. I'm gonna just put fund. All right, so this owns all the stocks. If it's public, it is likely inside of this this ETF. VTI. That's like your baseline. If you're looking for decent regular growth, something that you don't need to think about, something that you want to be on autopilot, you want passive growth, that's where you want to be. It is hard to beat this fund. Very inexpensive in terms of fees because it's Vanguard and it's passive. So again, that is my number one go-to if I'm looking for growth. However, it's not the only thing that's out there. So this is US growth, right? The US isn't the only country out there, and you can get a little more diversification if you decide to go international. In some years, the US isn't the best stock market out there. Other years, you've got Brazil used to be hot back in the day. I don't think that's the case anymore, but you go China, you can go Europe, Russia, you got other places that tend to do well. So that's where you get this one, VXUS, which is pretty much the global fund. So it is the total stock market fund without the US. So I don't know the exact term. Let's say total, I'll put global, and I'll put XUS. So it is everything, all the other countries minus the US, because you pretty much got that covered already. So between these two funds, you essentially have representation in every country, in every stock, all across the world. So if you're looking for growth and real diversified growth, you can get it between these two funds in terms of the stock market. Together, they work pretty well. The good thing is, let's say, for example, the US is going through a recession, but Europe is fine. In Japan, they're good. You are still okay because you've got both. We saw with the whole Brexit thing, and Europe wasn't all that great, but the US was fine at that point in time. So you can still kind of balance yourself in case one area or one country or one region isn't doing well. You can still pretty much diversify yourself and get growth from everywhere across the globe. So those are the stock funds. However, you always need some allocation to bonds. We talked about the rule of 110, where you take 110 minus your age. That's the percent you want to have in stocks. That would be this here. And then what percent you want to have in bonds, which will be the two that we will cover here. So that is, and I've talked about this one a lot. This is BND. This is Vanguard US Bond Fund, which pretty much measures all the bonds out there, right, in the US. And then you have BNDX, which is the global bond fund. And let me double check that, and let me correct this. FUND. I just want to make sure that it is BNDX. I believe it is, but I don't want to give y'all the wrong ticker symbol and then look crazy when I go back and look this video later. Okay. Yes, BNDX. All right, so the four of these are the ones that I generally will build my portfolio around, including my 401k. Inside of your 401k, most of us have a total US stock market fund. It may not be VTI exactly, but again, there are a lot of equivalents to it. For example, another equivalent is, I know at Fidelity, it's ITOT, right? They do the exact thing, same thing, US total stock market fund. They pretty much the same, right? There are equivalents for all of these based on where you are. Charles Schwab has one. Fidelity has one. Vanguard has one. State Street has one. They're all really, really similar. You're going to get a lot of the same things. Now, the next question, which I saw in public earlier, and I might have seen this on YouTube too, is, well, what about something like VOO? What about, so VOO is the S&P 500 fund. Now, this is what's called duplication, and I don't think it makes sense to have both a VOO or VOO type of index and a VTI. And again, these are all ticker symbols. For those that don't know, y'all should know unless you're new. You can type this into any of your investing apps, Public being one of them, Fidelity, so on and so forth. And these are the things that are going to pull up. Now, because we're talking about the overall US stock market, we're talking 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 stocks, and you take the top 500 of them, you're overlapping because this has all of those. And the performance is going to be similar because the largest 500 companies represent so much more of the overall stock market. I mean, you're talking again, Walmart, Exxon, Apple, any of the big names you have known of or heard of, they weigh so much, they take up a lot of that space. So the performance between the two, they're going to be very, very similar. So I don't think it makes sense to get two of the exact same things or one that contains the other. I think you're overdoing it at that point. I don't think you're getting any more diversification at that point because again, anything depending on who you ask, once you get past 30, maybe 50 stocks, you got every industry out there at that point. It's only like 11 depending on who you ask. So if you got 500, you're already good. You got more than that, it ain't gonna make that much of a difference. So you can do either or. You can do the S&P 500 and not do VTI, or you can do VTI and not do S&P 500. Again, you're talking like pennies difference between the two. Also, an equivalent of that is SPY. This is what you'll see me have on public. Again, same concept here. It has the S&P 500. It doesn't really make a huge difference between SPY or VOO, and it ain't that much of a difference between VOO and VTI. They are almost exactly the same. They're not exactly the same, but almost. So just be careful there. So these are the four though that I go with. Again, my 401k looks very, very similar to this, and we'll get to one other thing that you'll want to know in just a second. So these are the four I go with: total U.S. stock fund, total international fund, basically, total U.S. bond fund, total international bond fund. I got everything covered here. Now, next question you might want to know is, well, how do I break up my money between these? Is it 25% each? Is it, however I want to finagle that, right? Well, it depends on where you are as an investor. So if I did 25 in each, 25%, 25%, 25%, and 25%, well, that gives me 100, right? But that gives me 50-50 between stocks and bonds. This would be something for, in my view, somebody who is in retirement already or very, very close to it, where you're 50-50. If you are younger, I don't think that's an allocation that you want, because you want to have more growth. And the more that you have in these, the higher likelihood you are to grow and really see that money accelerate, whereas the bonds are sort of the brakes. They kind of protect you when things don't go the way we expect it to. Both are good to have. You need to have both, but that percentage is really going to be up to you, what you expect from the stock market and what your risk tolerance is. I have a course called the Perfect Portfolio Course, and we really dive super, super deep into, let me put this B back, into how do you decide where the money goes, how often do you go back and rebalance it, how do you rebalance that, and that whole thing. So you can check that out at buildingbread.com/PPC, because we go through, again, each and every one of those. But these are the four that I would look for my 401k. If I don't have these exact funds, I'd go and look at the equivalent. I'm looking, when I scan that list, I say, okay, U.S. stock market fund, boom. I go through international fund, boom. Total U.S. bond fund, boom, boom, and I'm good. That's exactly what I do. Now, if you don't want to invest in international funds, I've had some clients that I just want U.S. only. That's all I want. You can do that. You're going to be okay, right? But you may not be the most diversified. And if something happened to the U.S., which we have seen, you might not be the best off. So you could just do, if you want to be super, super simple, you could just do VTI and BND at your own risk if you want to. So these are the top four. Super easy. Obviously you want to take what you can, see if you want to apply it, see if it works for you. But this is that passive portfolio. Some people call it a lazy portfolio. Some people don't like the word lazy, whatever. I like lazy. Okay. So I like being able to put a good chunk of my money in the market and walk away for years and come back and be like, oh, look at that. Right. This is that's the power of index funds. I don't need to go do no research. I don't need to be worried. I know for a fact, going back to 1950s and beyond, we gonna be all right. And these funds have proven that over time. We talked about Etsy. I got in the trade for Etsy, and thank God I had a stop loss at 190, because last I checked, I think yesterday, Etsy was at 165. Ugh. Right. So I only lost just a tiny bit instead of losing that amount, a bigger amount of money. I don't have to do that if I got index funds. I got Etsy and everything else. Right now, again, ExxonMobil is up, right? Tesla is not. Amazon is not. But if I got an index fund, I got the whole thing. So I'm already getting a gain from energy. I don't need to go and look for it. I don't need to worry about it. I don't need to find undervalued stocks because I got them all anyway. So that is the power of having index funds. That's the beauty of having it, where you sit back, you get to relax. I know some people are like, oh, look, I made 1,000,000% on Dogecoin. I made 50 or 60% on this energy company. I'm losing money in tech. That's fine. You get to be right in the middle. You're gonna get what you get out of index funds, and you have the wealth of not being stressed. And that's the beautiful thing about it. All right. So before we close out, I'm looking for my book. I want to talk to you about, and this will be super brief, about my new book, From Burning to Blueprint, Rebuilding Black Wall Street After a Century of Silence. We talk about what happened in Tulsa in 1921 and before, because that's extremely important too. We talk about the years before, we talk about what happened in 1921, and then how do you rebuild generational wealth? How do you build wealth specifically in the Black community? The reason why I bring this up for this index fund conversation is because I have a section. This is chapter 10, basic investing terms you need to know. And the cool thing is, when I talk about wealth, y'all know what the deal is. So I made sure to include it and have a lot of really pertinent information about like breaking down the stock market. So for example, page 122, we talk about traditional IRAs. We talk about Roth IRAs on page 123. We talk about index funds on 127. I'm just read one or two lines. An index fund is a way of tracking the performance of a group of companies. Just talked about that. Index fund tracks large segments of the stock market and invests in those companies. There are several indices, but the two most popular are the Standard & Poor's 500, which is S&P 500 index, and which tracks the largest 500 in the US, and then the Dow Jones. Dow Jones is the top 30. We talked about that. Salesforce just made it, and a few others just made it like late last year. All right, so there's it for me. Make sure that you click the link above to pre-order. We are number one. We're already number one bestseller, at least in pre-orders for new releases in a few of the categories that we are in. Let's keep it going. You are going to enjoy the book. You're going to hear a lot more. I will be signing some books here pretty soon. Be heading to Tulsa. The book drops on the 18th, so you want to be there. It's going to be excellent, and y'all need to spread the word. All right, that's it for me. Make sure you hit the share button, and I'll talk to you guys later.